So there was something that I did want to clarify a little bit. So I showed you the Freedom Journal, and I didn't really explain what it was or how it worked, so I'm going to go over that just a little bit. The way this works is it's broken down into little sections. There's like 10-day sprints, and at the beginning of each 10-day sprint you kind of set out what goal it is that you want to achieve. For example, for my first 10-day sprint in the book, I wanted to learn HTML5 and CSS3, finish and apply the Miracle Morning, and publish my first 7 vlogs to YouTube. What I was thinking about is, as I've been learning HTML and CSS, I've been kind of learning it, but just on that base level, and I did want to dive just a little bit deeper into it. So I think what I'm going to do is take some more courses on it, so I know what I'm doing, and it's not just kind of like building on an unsure foundation, because that's kind of what I felt like when I was learning CSS. So I think I'm going to go back and kind of over this next week just solidify those things. It's just all there and it makes sense, and I don't have to go back and relearn it. I do feel a lot more confident in HTML now. I'm still not like advanced by any means. I'm still on a very basic level, but I was able to go through and code the whole website. I didn't copy and paste any code. I looked at my notes. I mean, as you might imagine, it's still like, I'm like really day 2 that I've been working on HTML, but everything that I wrote made sense, and I understood how all the code was working together and what everything stood for and all the abbreviations, and it kind of all clicked. So on that basic level, I have that down, but I took some more HTML5 classes today, and there is a whole skew of elements and different items that I don't have the slightest idea how to use yet. But as I keep going through this in the near future, hopefully I will. I am definitely not tired at all. I've just been coding and editing video all day long, so it's really just taken up my entire day, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to really shoot a lot of video, so I'm sorry for that, but I'll try to get it a little better tomorrow. Hashtag no sleep. But as I said, I'm going to try to keep up this 1 book review a day. And so I read this book. It's called Being Fat Is Not Okay. And it says like how to get the right mindset to finally lose weight and change your life. Like, wow. And so I was thinking maybe there actually be like some mind-changing or game-changing concepts in there that I'd actually like, that might help me. And it was a disappointment. The whole book was just centered around, in society, it's a lot more socially acceptable to be fat than it was in the recent past. But you really shouldn't just fall into the acceptance of society because it's not healthy for you to be fat. And that's totally true. I agree with that 100%. It's not healthy. But the book sucked. Sorry, Martin D.P. Langer, the author of this book. Boom. Alright, that's gonna do it for today. Catch you tomorrow. So I just wanted to go over some of the code that I wrote to kind of show you how it works to the website, and just kind of going through the concept of you learn as you teach. So I'm going to kind of be teaching this to kind of reaffirm it to myself. This beginning part right here, this is like the header for every page. It's the information that the web browser needs to read in order to recognize it as HTML5. So this first part right here, HTML Basics Day 2, this shows up in the tab right here. And then this is our nav element. So it's our navigation. So this is like the home. You go to media library, tables, back to home. For some reason I just made a broken link just for fun. I don't know. But anyways, that's what that nav element is. So then the body element, which is all of this code all the way to our closing body tag, you can see at the end there. So we have our H1 element, which is this home page, the header. and then there's some random content, which is right here, and then in the content I wanted to put a link. So this right here, href, this line of code, that is represented in this link, video and audio library. So that goes to a different page, which is the same as this media library page. Anyways, so that's how that link is created. And then an h2 element, which is this one right here. It's a slightly smaller heading. And then this right here is kind of interesting, this ampersand LT semicolon. That's how you put a less than symbol into the code. So that is right here on the website. Here I was just testing out different types of lists. Like I have an unordered list, and then within that unordered list I have a nested ordered list right here. So I can highlight all of that. And so that's what, gets these bullet points, and then 1 and 2 is an ordered list inside of it. Then below that I did this part right here, which is the descriptive list item and its description, and another item and its description, and so on and so forth. So that's just kind of how this is all laid out. Descriptive list, descriptive title, description, description, descriptive title, description, description. Like, that's what all those tags mean. Then I closed off the div element and I started a new one just to do the acronym. Not that it was necessarily needed, but just to test it out. It says there's also an acronym message is used for any word like, and then the opening tag, acronym title equals hypertext markup language, HTML. So that means if I go over here and I hover over HTML, it'll say hypertext markup language. If I scroll back up, here is the media library. So over here I can go to audio and video. So that same nav element, copy and paste from the other page to this page. All the pages need to have the same nav. Here I did audio and controls, and those controls make it so there's the play button, the volume, the scroller, all that stuff. And then the source, there's 2 different source items. So they're the exact same item, but it's like a fallback. In case the browser doesn't support an MP3, it'll use an OGG, just depending upon the platform that it's being used on. Same thing here, I did the video controls. So we have this, this play button right here, and the volume, typical controls. And same thing, we have an MP4, a WebM, and an OGV. So all of this is just different backup formats in case one format is not supported by a particular browser. And then over here, I did image. There's no backups for this, it's just a JPEG, except for the browser really doesn't support a JPEG. Alternatively, it'll say Google logo. So if I changed them both to percentages like that, height and width, 25% of the page. So out of this available area that I have, it's going to use 25% of the width and 25% of the height. So if I made this page bigger, you would see that that one gets bigger as the page size increases and decreases. So that's kind of the interesting thing about percentages, is they are responsive to the size of the window. So you can use that or not use that depending upon the application. So this is a very basic table. I did very minimal editing. So this top part, this is the title for all this random info. That is found right here in the caption. This is the title for all this random info. So the caption tag is kind of the title for it. And then there is title row and title header. So name, hours, that's all this top information right here. And then each line requires its own table row, table data, that's the TD. Bob, 7 hours, 3 hours, 30 hours. 7 hours, 3 hours, 30 hours. And so they just have to go in the same order as the original table headers, and that's how that all works together. And these are all just duplicates, different info, except for this last one. So I put in this guy's name as ace sup2 closing sup tag, and so that's what put this little squared. It's a superscript. And then I did this. Then I did table data colspan 3. So that means it's going to take the first 3 columns that it sees and combine them. It's going to span them together. and then in that I just put all the hours. So A squared is spending all the hours on HTML, CSS, and reading. So really just proof of concept. And then over here up in the table, I did a little bit of styling just for the fun of it. And these you can do percentages with. If I wanted to, I could just make this a 75%, and then if I reloaded it, very close to what it already was, but it'll always take up 75% of the page. Very similar concept to the images that I was doing just a minute ago. And then the border 2, so this says that this little border right here, this gray one, is going to be 2 pixels wide. And when you add a border to the outside, most browsers by default just add these little tiny borders on the inside. So that's just a little side note. That's just a browser assumed default. And that's the basic for everything that I did coding this little website, just kind of messing around with it. Just a simple example of different types of HTML that you can implement. And like I said, this is very basic. This is after 2 days of HTML. And I did want to mention this code, it's a little scrunched. It's not quite as pretty as I could have made it, but that way it's just kind of easier for me to show it all on one screen. So ideally I would kind of space this out a little more, but for proof of concept it's still organized the way it would be, just without as much space.